What's good, gamers? Akalon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. How you guys doing? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday. It's Friday. It's evening for me, but for some of you, it might actually be daytime, in which case, it's almost the weekend. You just have to get through one more day of work. And for those in Australia, their weekends are pretty much over, so we can all just laugh at that. How you guys doing? Thomas, how you doing, bro? Ezio, how you doing? Alexandra, how you doing? Yame? Not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I don't know how to make that sound, but how you doing? Frozen Solid, Kimmy, how you guys doing? Minutes and I'm done? What do you mean minutes? Holy shit. Really? That fast? Wow. Ortangu, how you doing? Post Misha, how you doing? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize for last week. I sort of planned on only doing this every second week. And then when I scheduled it, I just completely spaced and I was like, nah, it's Friday. We'll do it Friday. And then I remembered, oh, wait, I want to do it every second week. But then I also asked in a post whether or not you guys would like to see it weekly. And yeah, overwhelmingly people said, no, you'll work every weekend. And I was like, okay, fine. You slave driving bastards. I'll work every weekend. So for the foreseeable future, this Barrens Chat will be every Friday due to popular demand and also growing number of people believing themselves to be slave drivers. That's why we're here. How you guys doing? Ducky, how you doing? Wayward Hex, how you doing? That's because you need to do it weekly? Fine, fuck you. I won't have a life. I'll just be here the whole time. Why don't I just go live 7 days a week? What about that? Yeah? Like, just every night at 6 o'clock we go live and we talk about World of Warcraft. Would that make you happy? Would that be good for you? Farkas, how you doing, bro? Yeah, it's been quite a week, hasn't it? There's the new cinematic that's just come out, which is actually pretty cool. Although there's not much new. We've already discussed a bunch of stuff there. Of course, they're going to say yes. Well, I am pretty much live every day over on Twitch. But that's a whole different scene. Now, before we get into today's stuff, you know, all the fun stuff and so on, we have to talk about my great disappointment. And it is something that I didn't really want to talk about this because I didn't want to tell you guys about this. It is a point of great shame for me. It's something that I've lied about for a while now. Like, I've refused to talk about it and I've sort of pretended like it's not true. But it has to be said. I have a Patreon, so you can support me there for $1 a month. You can support me over on Patreon. I know it's shameful, but just for $1, you make sure that I don't say yes to any sponsorships, and you know, you give me money. So go do that if you have not done that already, or else just hit the like button because it helps a little. Anyways, what are we going to talk about? I obviously have some topics that I've prepared for us, some things that I think we should absolutely be discussing. We should probably talk a little bit about the Goblins, because there's a new Goblin story that came out. A lot of you asked whether or not I'm going to be reading the Goblin story, and the answer to that is no. The Goblin story, while pretty cool, is lore, from a lore perspective, is completely insignificant. There is no lore in that Goblin story. It's cool, it's incredibly cool, because it's a source of world building, and I think world building is always good, but there's literally nothing else there. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Clabby, how you doing, bro? $2, thank you so much for the $2 donation, really appreciate you, sir. Thank you. I'm not paying anything to you. Well, you just gave me $2, so joke's on you, good sir. Joke's on you. I still appreciate the $2. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so the Goblin Way, just to put that out there so that everyone knows, I'm not going to be doing a reading of that. While I love doing the readings, they take a long time, right? So the reading itself takes about 4 hours to go from reading it, recording it, and then the editing takes another 3, 4, 5 hours to get done. I would love to do that the whole time, but I don't have the time for that. So I'm only going to do readings of short stories that is lore impactful, because those are the most fun ones and those are the ones that we care most about. That's not to say that the Goblin Way is a bad short story, but it's more world building than what it is lore. And it's something that I think Blizzard should absolutely be doing more of. I would love to see more of that. And the reason for it is, I've said for many, many years now that when it comes to the culture of the races in World of Warcraft, it's criminally underdeveloped. You know, if I were to ask you, what is the culture of the trolls, or what is the culture of the orcs? The only real answer you could give me is through the lens of war making. Because that's really the only thing you know. We don't really know. What does marriage look like in Orcish society? You know, what does the family value setup look like? How do families operate within the Orcish clans? What is relationships between fathers and sons like in general? We don't know any of that stuff. So the Goblin Way really is a way to try and answer at least part of that question, because we get what the goblins used to be about, but then we also get what they're trying to become, and this new era that they're trying to usher in, where goblins are still working. Now, in many ways, you could actually make the argument, and ironically, that the Goblin Way is kind of Blizzard Entertainment. If you read through it, you'll understand. It goes from this place where no one gives a shit about the workers. The workers lose fingers and arms and hands and legs, and you know, they're basically just work to the bone, profit being at the forefront of everything. And then, you know, in comes the new sort of era of Goblin-esque being, where now they're going to care about the workers, and they're going to actually, the bosses are actually going to get their hands dirty, and they're going to help, and they're going to pay their workers a living wage, and they're going to, you know, keep the place safe so that the workers, you know, don't lose breast milk. They didn't say that, but they could have said that. So there's a lot of stuff that you can sort of draw similarities between old Blizzard and new Blizzard, and, you know, maybe that's exactly why they wrote it that way. There's still, of course, some stuff with greed and... should we talk about this? Tree Breeze, how you doing? Wayward Wakes, how you doing, bro? I say give us 100 world-building stories for every one lore story. It makes world more interesting and the lore mysterious. Absolutely agree with you. The thing with lore, with world building specifically, world building allows for a lot more speculation, but it also gives people the ability to envision the world a lot better. Lore takes a long time to write. You have to really think about how you're implementing certain things. World building, on the other hand, gives you foundation for more lore. It makes the lore sometimes even easier. If you have a very rigid world building model in front of you, in other words, every single one of the races have a very specific culture and a very specific way in which they're going to deal with things, it sort of makes the lore writing part much easier. Because whenever you want to come up with something, it's almost automatic how the different races are going to react to the thing that you're trying to come up with. So I absolutely agree with you. I think world building is super important, and I think short stories is probably one of the best ways of delving into world building. You could do it in game, like absolutely. You could have quest lines that sort of reveal a little bit about the culture and the world and so on, but they're difficult to do. No, they're difficult to do well. You could do it, but it could be very boring. A lot of people could not care about it, and a lot of people could just miss it, right? Because they don't read quests. That's a big problem in World of Warcraft. A lot of people don't read the quests. So how are you actually going to implement it? So I think short stories are perfectly fine for this, and it's a great utilization of the tool. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. Now, a little bit of bad news here, should we... Let's get the negative thing out of the way before we talk about the fun stuff, right? Are you guys okay with that? Let's do a little bit. They need to put them short stories in the game. Ducky, I would definitely like to see the short stories make their way into the game, even if it is just in the form of in-game books. I feel like it's funny that in the Goblin Way, one of the key takeaways is that profits are important, and of course there are. You know, no business can operate at a loss. That would be stupid as shit. So, of course, I want Blizzard to make as much money as they can possibly make. But there is a difference between making money and then exploiting everyone and making way more money than what you are actually morally entitled to. And I don't mean morally as in, oh, you've made enough money now. I mean, did you make your money morally? Like, I don't give a shit whether you have $1, $100, $1 billion, or $1 trillion. As long as whatever amount of money you have, you've made morally, it's yours to keep. I couldn't care less, right? So fundamentally, I think the problem that I have with Blizzard and the books is I'm already buying the game. I'm already paying $15 a month. Isn't it at least to some extent fair that I get a digital version of the book? Like, even if you don't want to put them in the game, why don't you just give everyone a digital version, like a Kindle version, for free, included in well, not even for free, but included in the sub price? I'm still going to go out and buy the physical copy because I like having physical books. And there's going to be many people that still buy the physical copy because they like physical books. But I think it's something that you should do, you know? I feel like it's something that it is just fair. The short stories specifically could be such cool in-game books. So yeah, I'm with you there. I would like to see it. On to the negative stuff. I'm going to ask you guys a question and then well, that's how we normally do it here. Just FYI. I ask a question and then you guys answer me. How do you feel about the 3 days early access? How do you guys feel? Games are interactive. Stories in games should also be interactive, not in game books. Pointer, you can't really say that because almost every single major RPG do have in-game books. Cyberpunk, Witcher 3, even Dragon Age, Baldur's Gate. There are certain stories that, in order to build the world, you have to have those in the game for people that actually care about that stuff. But if you were to try and put all of that in sort of like an interactive experience, you'd be fucked. There's no shot that that would happen. You'd have a better chance being fucked by an elephant, quite frankly. You'd probably also have a better time during that one. Because you're talking about an insane amount of quests that you'd have to try and invent just to be able to tell one book's worth of story. So, yeah, it is not workable. So there are places where a book just does a lot of heavy lifting and it removes a lot of the problems that you would otherwise have to be dealing with. So I get what you're saying, and I do think that where I would agree with you is you should always look at every single story that you want to tell, and you should ask yourself, can I do this better in the game? And if the answer is absolutely yes, then don't put that in a book. Put that into a game. So I'm with you. The priority should always be that a game is interactive, and therefore it should be shown interactively. But then if you do get to something where you go, it's really going to make no difference whether this is an interactive quest line or just an in-game book, then do it as an in-game book and instead spend the resources that you do have on something a lot better or a lot cooler, you know? There is a good way to put those stories, have a narrator talking while you do something, kind of like an interactive lore tab. You could do that, but again, remember, we are talking about... We're talking about resources. So I feel like one of the Brickle J, how you doing? Hobo Apple, how you doing, bro? Morny, how you doing? So when it comes to game design, what you guys have to remember is you have resources. As a gaming company, it all boils down to resources. If you have 100 developers and you are dedicating 40 of those developers to consistently creating really cool interactive quests, or, you know, money-wise, you're spending a shit ton of money on having this narrator just tell you the book, right? Or tell you the stuff that you need to know that is in books. Very quickly, you start to drain away actual budgets that could have been used somewhere else. Because remember, it's all good and well to say there could be a narrator that tells you all of these things that are in the book, but someone has to write those lines. And while they're writing the dialogue for the narrator to read, they're not actually developing the lore and the story. So I love the idea. I actually think that would be super cool. One of the ways in which I have always thought Blizzard or World of Warcraft really misses out is something like an actual lore journal. where as you go through a zone and you quest through the entirety of the zone, I think we discussed this on like the first episode or something, but as you go through the zone, as you quest, all of your actions and all of the events are recorded in a journal that is just forever. So whenever you want, you can go to your lore journal, click on that zone, and it will tell you exactly what the story is in that zone, in the order that you did the story in, or in maybe the chronological order, depending on how you want to implement that. But ultimately, it gives you a very quick and easy way to go back and see exactly what the story was for a specific zone. But then it also allows you in future, if there's more story in a zone, to just see how all of that impacts and adds on. So that's something that I definitely would love to see in World of Warcraft. And you could imagine that a narrator in this regard could actually not be a bad idea to try and implement that into the game. But again, it all boils down to resources, and resources are always going to be limited when it comes to working on games and making video games. The War MMO, Age of Reckoning, had that. It was called the Tome of Knowledge. So I have bad news for all of you. I have 2 bits of bad news for all of you. Two. So first, let's quickly talk about the 3-day early access. I will say I'm not happy about it. Not at all. I'm actually very peeved about the 3-day early access. And the reason for it is incentives. In an MMO, because I get it. I get that there's a lot of people saying, well, I don't care at all about that. And I would argue that most likely the people who don't care about 3-day early access are either people who always buy the most expensive version of the game anyways, so they couldn't care less, they're going to get it anyway, or it's people that, they don't even think about it. There's, I don't care. Blizzard can do whatever they want. I'm going to play the game anyways. I would say that one of the most important parts psychologically of an MMO is the idea of community. It's the idea that, especially with the new expansion, I don't know if you guys remember, back in the day, even now, on launch night, the night where everything's coming out, it's going to be 12 o'clock, and as soon as that fucking clock takes over, everyone's going to try and log in at the same time, and the servers are going to crash, and it's going to be terrible, and we're going to be on Discord with all of our mates, and we're going to be complaining about the fact that we can't get into the game, and then we're going to finally get into the game, we're going to quest a little, and then the game's going to crash, and you're going to be like, I'm back in the queue, number 10,000. All of that is culture. It's part of what makes the game what it is, right? And it's part of the stories that we tell ourselves years later. Even now, anyone that played during the era of Warlords of Draenor have the stories of the garrison being fucked day one up until like the first week, the garrison not working, and people are talking about it and complaining about it and reminiscing about how terrible the garrison experience was for the first week at least, and then how it destroyed the whole expansion. But that's a whole different story. So fundamentally, it's an event. And the launch of a new expansion, that event becomes part of the historical memory, the collective memory of the players that play it. When you have 3-day early access, you immediately destroy that collective memory. Because now the one half of the player base will play the game at one point in time, and another half will start playing it 3 days later. So there is no collective memory anymore, which to me I think is it's sad because it removes a vital part of the stories that we tell. It makes people feel left out. It makes people feel like they're not valued. And considering the fact that we all pay $15 a month, we all bought the game, we should not be punished for not wanting to spend an extra $30 or $40 just so that we can get 3 days, just so that we can play the game on the actual launch. Right, so I do think that fundamentally that is a big problem for me. And there's only so many times you can make these little changes before you end up destroying what the culture actually is, right? What the gamers actually feel when they play the game. Which, it's just sad. I'm not saying that it will happen, but it can have very negative impacts overall. So, I principally refuse to buy anything more expensive than the standard version of any game, because I don't believe that games should have multiple editions. I'm perfectly fine with you having a standard edition and then a collector's edition, where you get all sorts of collector goodies. Good job. Go for it. Do whatever you need to do. But I don't support the idea of having digital deluxe editions and, every other edition. Standard edition, that's what I buy. I refuse to incentivize anything beyond that. So I wouldn't play the 3 days early access even if I was given the option to, but I'm not going to buy it for exactly that reason. Adam, how you doing, bro? I bought for early access because I'm not being left behind. I hate that. I had to, though. You see, Adam, the thing is, if that's your mindset, then you've just given Blizzard a reason to do more of it. I'm not blaming you, by the way. You're not the only one. I'm not blaming anyone. But every single person that goes, well, shit, okay, so I have to buy the more expensive one, you've just given Blizzard a reason to do more of that in the future. So if in a few years from now, Blizzard starts to realize, hey, we could do this with patches, we could do this with even more things, you're only going to be blaming yourself at that point. Because you've told Blizzard, I'm okay with paying extra in order to get shit early. Believe me, they're going to try and make more money out of you. So they're going to try and give you... And we spoke about this yesterday, and I'm not saying that this will in fact happen, because at this point, I feel like this would actually destroy a lot of people's trust. But you could... If Blizzard thought that they could get away with this, they would absolutely do it. If they thought that they could charge $5 for 3-day early access to the new raid, they will do it. You have to remember, companies are all about making money. Companies don't care about you, me, or the moral good, or anything to that effect. They care about the money. And if they thought that they could charge $5 for 3 days early access to a raid and not lose players, they'll do it. So it's always important to not incentivize specifically behavior that you don't want to see. Take the hit, play 3 days late, but don't buy more expensive and then incentivize this kind of behavior, because it will get worse. If they think that they can get away with it, they're going to try and get away with it. So I'm a little bit annoyed at that, but, it is what it is. I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. I don't think that's as bad as when your mum is disappointed, but I'm a little disappointed. I'm not angry, but I am a little disappointed. Easy Cat, how you doing? Avra, how you doing? The only reason I see for being behind is on mats and crafting economy, but story is a weekly unlock affair. It doesn't, like I said, in my whole criticism of the early launch, or actually the late launch, for everyone that's too poor or unwilling to buy the more expensive versions, I never used any arguments about progression or being behind on progression or anything like that, right? Because you don't have to. It's about collective memory, collective history, and the experiences that we're going to have collectively versus by the time the game launches for everyone that is either too poor to buy the more expensive versions, or for everyone that refuses to buy the more expensive versions, the game is already old. The hype is already gone. All of it has already been spoiled. Everyone has already seen all of the cinematics. So you are effectively just playing an old game now. And these days, with how fast things move, 3 days is a long time, Reminds me of Death by 1,000 Cuts, how these ideas work with early access. Definitely a slippery slope to keep paying for things that give you what you already paid for and is locked away. Jordan, the problem is exactly that. You just use the key word here. Death by 1,000 cuts. Cultures don't break with one big event. Well, they can if you drop like a fucking meteor on them, But generally speaking, a culture doesn't break because, some big thing happened. It breaks by 1,000 little cuts. And every game, specifically MMOs, have a culture. We'll have the problematic uncles in the dungeons that keep annoying everyone. You have that one crazy fuck in Barrens Chat that is just consistently, sounding like he may actually know Alex Jones IRL. You have all these people that form part of the larger WoW family, and they're part of the culture. Everyone's hanging out, everyone's enjoying themselves as a result of this. So fundamentally, how much damage are you doing to that culture, I think, is a question that should at least be asked, right? Everyone who always bought expansions and was subbed now has to wait 3 days because they don't pay extra this time. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not too happy about it. Grofar, how you doing? Kylie, how you doing? The Grey, how you doing, bro? I hope you guys are well. Thank you so much for joining. Jordan, also, by the way, how you doing, bro? But yeah, the other thing that there was something else that kind of annoyed me that I wanted to talk about. What was the other bad thing that happened this week, guys? There was one more thing. I said I wanted to talk about 2 bad things. I spoke about the one bad thing, but now I can't remember the other bad thing. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out at some point. I think I asked you guys a question about this, but I genuinely can't remember what it was. So we'll just move on from there. How about guilds as factions? Guild Wars? Oh, yes! I remember now. I have bad news. I have really bad news. Actually, I have sad news. It's not so much bad news, but it is sad news. World of Warcraft is now officially the only MMO in the top 5 that do not have what we would refer to as player housing. Yeah, Guild Wars just announced that player housing is indeed coming to Guild Wars, which, to my mind, it's embarrassing. Like, seriously, it is embarrassing. Every single one of the top 5 MMOs now have player housing. And WoW still isn't anywhere near player housing, which I don't understand. I want to start off by saying I am not someone that's going to build a house in World of Warcraft, just to be clear. This is not a fight that I'm fighting for myself, right? Because I couldn't care less. I will never have a house in a video game. It annoys me. I begrudgingly build houses in survival games because I must, right? If I could play the survival game without building the house, I would do that. But you have to, because that's how the game is designed. I don't like building, and I specifically don't like decorating. But fundamentally, I understand the importance of it. And more importantly, I understand that player housing offers paths of progression that is non-toxic. And I mean non-toxic in the way of the game itself. So one of the things we speak about all the time is the constant creep of item level and power in World of Warcraft. Well, when you have player housing, you can do so many types of content where players can enjoy the content and not get power gear or power level increases from that content, but instead get things that they can spend in their house. You know, like a different type of wallpaper, or a different type of window, or different type of roof, or I don't know, like a million different things. Maybe a six swing. I don't know. Blizzard could think of things. Maybe a fridge that, locks so you can put milk inside of it. Anything you want, really. You could do with these quests, and they won't actually add to the power creep. So now you can also do a lot more events. You can do a lot more things. And you have a new sort of line of incentivization that doesn't lead to, ultimately just a bunch of power bloat. more importantly, one of the key problems or one of the key features of player housing is that during content droughts, player housing becomes an incredibly viable type of content. An incredibly viable type of content. Because even the most hardened raider, even the most anti-housing, activist, during times where there is really absolutely nothing for them to do, might jump into their house and just go build it a little. Maybe go find a little bit of joy inside that house. So the fact that WoW still doesn't have that just feels like such a large L. And I know that many people might say, but Akko, they might actually be bringing player housing to World of Warcraft. Maybe they're just not talking about it now. To my mind, I feel like you've made the community wait so long for player housing that at this point, I would argue, announce it even if it isn't close to ready. I think you could buy so much goodwill from the player base if Blizzard came out and said, hey guys, please don't expect this to be within the next 2 years or even 4 years, but we want you to know player housing is going to be a thing. We're working on it. We're going to implement it. Just give us time, but we want you to know that this is an active thing that we are going to be working on. I think, yeah, guild halls is a thing that can come back. The class order halls absolutely have to come back because I think while it isn't housing, it is certainly a way for players to feel like there is a little part for them. There's a little corner of Azeroth that is just for them. And there's some interesting lore complications and implications and lore exploration that you can do from the guild or from the class order halls and even from the guild order halls and things of that nature. So I think ultimately there is a large enough reason for Blizzard to announce these things and then to allow the player base to at least sort of rest easy, knowing that these things are going to be a thing in the future. Player housing is, I'd be more interested in them making a hall of the champion thing that actually acknowledges the nameless hero that saves everyone's ass all the time. Seems like our characters deserve a statue or a plaque or something. So Jordan, the thing is, even though housing might be for you, it isn't for most players, right? There is a giant group of players that love the idea of player housing. And you can have your own statue in your player house, right? To yourself, dedicated to you and the stuff that you do. So there's some interesting stuff that player housing can do, even for players that just want to celebrate themselves, There are some really ways. And then think about how quickly we'll be able to clean up the inns around Azeroth when all the ERP folk can finally go fuck inside their own house rather than doing it in an inn where you might actually just want to go unwind, drink a beer, and talk about your adventures, So it will clean up Azeroth. It will clean up the streets of Azeroth a lot, actually, which I think is just all around a good idea. Guild halls and the dungeon raid trophies would be a nice display. Dungeons, delves, even world quests, the ability to unlock different types of trophies. You even have systems that maybe like your favorite armor, being able to display your favorite weapons on a mannequin or, something to that effect. Imagine that, imagine this one piece of armor that you have that you're super proud of because you grinded the fuck out of it. Now you get to display that. Maybe a picture of your favorite mount or your most rare mount that you can put on the wall and a little outside bit where your mounts can walk around and, do things to each other. There's so much you can do with the player housing system that allow players to celebrate the things, their journeys through World of Warcraft, which is a big deal for a lot of people that care about player housing. Given how many people love transmogs, housing would be a big hit with anyone who likes to develop their characters look and feel. Yep. FL Guy, how you doing, bro? This still sounds like ERP. Well, the housing could have ERP to it. Absolutely. It's almost definitely going to, in what universe is Blizzard going to add housing and it isn't instantly going to become, at least for some players, an ERP cesspit? Let's be honest. There's no shot. If players are turning the inns into a sex dungeon, they're going to make sex dungeons for their houses. I wouldn't mind having a display wall or armor state hall, so I definitely think it has a draw to it. Just didn't get me as excited as something like when they implemented dragon riding. So Jordan, but this is exactly the thing, right? To make a successful MMO, you want to capture as many people as you can in a taint, right? So you have to think about games as taints. I'm going to use a political argument here because South Africa just went through an election, and I've basically been non-stop watching political interviews and arguments and shit. But okay, we'll use a political argument, adapting it for actual video games. Think about games as taints, right? A marquee that you go in and you go enjoy the festivities inside this taint. Single-player games, RPGs, shooters, whatever, right? Those single-player games are very small, very narrow, but very long marquees. They're very suited for doing specifically what they claim to do and nothing really else. MMOs tend to be incredibly large, incredibly enormous taints. Why? Because they promise to do a lot of things. And the idea is, rather than just get a couple of people into the taint, you want as many people into the taint as humanly possible. So the more things you can put inside this taint, the more attractions that you can build in this taint, the better. You have a massive taint, you want to fill it up with people. The only way to fill it up with people is to put enough stuff there for everyone to enjoy. So this is where housing comes in. It's not the main attraction, but it's one of the attractions. And you keep adding these little attractions, and this fills up your taint. You can't go the route of, say, Cyberpunk, because the players or the people that will play a game like Cyberpunk is a very specific type of player. And if you try to make Cyberpunk an MMO, it would fail, because the players that like playing a game like Cyberpunk aren't automatically going to enjoy an MMO, right? So fundamentally, narrow for pretty much every other game. Multiplayer games is a little bit larger, but still fairly narrow. And then, you know, you have the MMO that is a massive giant taint, and you want to get as many different people into it as is humanly possible. I think I like more a tavern full of players than a house with 3 in it. Farcrest, so if you build the housing system correctly, you could do it like, for example, in Final Fantasy XIV. So in Final Fantasy XIV, you have people that built their houses and turned it into nightclubs, where every Friday night they have actual DJs playing music in the nightclub, and people come into the nightclub and they dance. You have people doing strip clubs. You have people doing more spicy places. So you can have, if you do the housing system correctly, you could have people have a ton of fun with the housing system, you know, so you can build your own tavern if that is something that you're interested in. In ESO, you just buy the house and there are no bidding on. I would say that if Blizzard was ever going to go the route of housing, there shouldn't be a bidding system. Everyone should have a house. Everyone. Every single person should have a house. The whole bidding thing, I understand why Final Fantasy did that. They wanted to have the houses have value. I feel like the houses have value just because players want the fucking house, right? So I don't think, I don't like the idea of players having to bid on and hope that they're going to get a lot. I think that's just nonsense. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, fundamentally, this is the end of the sad stuff for for tonight, because yeah, I wanted to discuss it. I felt like it is important. I saw the news pop up 2 days ago on my Twitter feed, and I was like, man, that literally does now, because previously we as WoW players could at least say, well, Guild Wars doesn't have housing, so suck a dick. But now we can't say that anymore. Guild Wars will have housing too. So now it really is just WoW. House bidding just becomes a how much WoW tokens can you spend? True. Housing has been a long subject for years. Yeah, but I think that's exactly the point, right? The fact that housing has been this massive discussion for so many years should tell you that there's enough people that care about it, that the conversation keeps going, right? If it was something small and something that most players didn't even really give a shit about, it would have died already, you know? People wouldn't keep talking about it. Why would you keep making content or keep bringing it up if it's not really something that you care about? What I would really like is to be able to get into a battleground. PvP is so dead. Wait, is it actually, Kylie? Well, to be fair, it is the end of the expansion. There's very little going on right now. There's very little to be doing right now, especially in things like PvP. So I wouldn't know. I don't really PvP, but from what I've understood, players have actually been enjoying PvP this expansion. Is there anyone here that does PvP that has a similar experience? Like, is PvP actually that big of a problem? Dude, I want the Battle Royale back. I had fun in that thing. I had crazy fun in that thing. Like, I want to go Battle Royaling again. I was a little sad when that stuff was finally over. I'm doing 2s, and queues are quick there at least. Anyone doing Battlegrounds? You know, how's the Battleground scene? What is this PvP you speak of? Well, I play Shaman, so whatever piece of content I do, it's a problem. Arvin, how you doing? I did a bunch of matches last night. I guess my worry with player housing is that it would quickly become a low-effort microtransaction howl, and they would need to really tie other gameplay into the progression if they want to do it right. When you say other gameplay into the progression, what do you mean? I don't think I care attaching, like, if Blizzard attached microtransactions to the housing system, I don't think that matters, because the housing, as long as housing remains a full cosmetic only experience, Blizzard could add as many fucking types of microtransactions to that as they want, right? Because it literally has no effect or impact on the gameplay itself, which is the only way I think player housing can actually work. My problem with PvP at the moment is tier states. Epic BGs are scuffed. How do you all feel about random rated battlegrounds? Oh yeah. Is there anyone in chat that's done random rated battlegrounds? How's that been? How's that experience been? Kylie, have you tried random battlegrounds, the rated one? Because that's the one that I think most people would be doing now. Kraken, the problem there is that's always going to happen, right? The game wasn't really built with that in mind. Can't agree here. Cosmetic progression is important. Microtransactions erode it. Wayward Wakes, the thing is, so you have to pick your battles. Would you rather Blizzard attach... Because microtransactions are yet to stay. The problem is that the time to fight microtransactions was about a decade ago. And back then, no one wanted to fight it. I remember because I was attacked endlessly for fighting this exact battle. So back then, no one wanted to fight the microtransaction battle. That battle is gone, right? You're never putting that genie back in the bottle. The only way microtransactions go away is if the world economy crashes and suddenly no one have food, so no one's buying microtransactions anymore. Then maybe, but it is too late to put that genie back in the bottle. The only thing that you can really do at this point is to target it to the places that has the least amount of impact on the game. Now, would you rather have cosmetics and microtransactions in a cosmetic sense, or would you have it in a player power sense? Because these are basically your options. When I started WoW, I just lived in BGs. Well, back then you could get titles. Do you miss the title days, Brett? I subbed a few days ago, did a random BG. It's so scuffed. I'm Horde because I'm not a nerd. We dominated Arathi Basin. Well, why is that a problem? It feels like that's lore appropriate. The Horde dominates Alliance. I'm not sure. What's the problem? That's very lore accurate. I'm glad Blizzard is sticking to the lore so concretely. they would just use the trader for it. It'd have player housing items on it as well. I missed the vanilla days of WoW PvP where you could have a mix of purple and blue gear and maybe a common or two and still do great damage healing if you knew your class instead of PvP gear. I would like to... I don't know exactly what those balances are about, but it is true that I think gear has become far more important in modern WoW compared to old WoW, where gear was important, but more often than not, what was far more important was how well you played rather than just the gear. So the only time gear would become a massive differentiator was when you had two players that were of equal skill, and then, yes, the player with the better gear would do better. But for the most part, you know, item level wasn't that big of an impact. But now, I don't know if that is actually because that was actually the truth, or if it was just because most of us didn't know what the fuck we were doing, so it didn't really matter, right? So it could be either of those things. Now, there is no reason to go high rating beside T-Mark and some gear upgrade. Cosmetic for sure, and I think the best of both worlds is putting Transmarks on the store like 6 months before the trader. People can pay to get it early. I do think the trading tender thing opens the door for a lot more cosmetic purchases and a lot more microtransactions than what we've ever had in the future or in the past. But I also think that it might actually be that best of both worlds, where players who want to buy it can just buy it off the store, but then players who don't want to spend money can just buy it later by paying the subscription fee and therefore getting the trading tenders and then buying it with the tenders. So I do agree with you. I think while I would love to see both of these systems not be in the game, fundamentally, if we are going to have these systems in the game, then maybe this isn't the worst thing. You know, maybe this isn't the worst idea. As long as you put it on the trader store a few months later, I'm cool with it. Just don't make cash only items. When is the last time, like, do we still have, like, I'm sure there are, right? There are still items that is cash only, no? All PvP talents are very, very outdated. Please, they need to remove or make changes. Dude, why do I keep, like, every single few weeks, there will be a massive amount of... Is PvP seriously in this big of a problem? Because from the sound of it, PvPers haven't been having fun for a few expansions now. Has it really been this bad the whole time? Oh, Blackwolves, yeah. We already spoke about that, and I think when it comes to housing, the ESO style of housing where you can just buy a house and it's instantly is probably the best way to do it. I fundamentally agree with that. Don't do PvP, mostly because I suck at it. TJ, you're not alone. I don't do PvP either. I'm afraid whenever I see a large group of players playing a specific type of thing in World of Warcraft complain about it, that scares me a little, because the game really does require all of its players to enjoy themselves. If we got into a position where all the PvPers quit, that would almost definitely change the balance of World of Warcraft quite phenomenally. So, you know, it is important for me to try and figure out what exactly is the problem with PvP, and just how big is that problem. Mainly just because I like doing it. I haven't done BGs much since BC, lol. I really did so much in vanilla, I was burnt out on it. Well, you should not have done that many then. What are you doing? What they should do for PvP is when you activate war mode, no matter what server you're on, you're sent to the first PvP shard, shared by all servers until it's full and creates another shard. Don't they already do that? I mean, I'm sure they already do that. Whenever you have war mode on, most of the people you'd see around you would also have war mode on, right? Or does it throw you into shards with literally no one else? Yeah, actually, Strands of the Ancients, was one of the few battlegrounds I actually enjoyed. But not gonna lie, I also don't understand why they kept the Conquest one in, but removed one of the few ones that was actually quite fun to do. So yeah, I would that is definitely a decision that I don't understand. I don't think it's a pool of all, but certainly regional. I love the Bee Gees in vanilla. They were just fun, but there's a limit for some of us, and I reached mine. Oh, Wintergrass should come back as well. Very much agree with you. I think Wintergrass must come back. I'm always outnumbered in war mode. What if war mode became a free-for-all? Or do you think that would just be way too chaotic and not fun at all? So when you turn on war mode, everyone is an enemy. There's no friends. Not of your faction, not of the other faction. It's you against the world, quite a maverick. I don't know, I'm just throwing out shit. I haven't turned on war mode ever. Ever. Since war mode has been announced and implemented into the game, it has always been off for me. Always. So I couldn't give two shits. The scene is quite good at the moment. The problem comes from weak auras and other add-ons playing for you, and there are too many buffs and debuffs to track, so they are required. PvPers hate it. I mean, that's a problem that the raiders are having as well, with the amount of buffs and debuffs and the complexities of the game, that I think Blizzard should probably try and simplify that. But then at the same time, how do you simplify it? Because if you start to simplify debuffs, that would mean you'd also have to simplify classes, and classes are already pretty simple in World of Warcraft, so how do you make it even more simple than that? I use it sometimes for the extra loot. I've leveled in war mode a fair bit and usually didn't have much PvP. No, I keep war mode off like a cancer. When you go to the war mode quest areas, it is a free-for-all. Yeah, I don't do that. There is way too much going on in PvP. If you don't have any add-ons, it can get overwhelming. I feel like that's true, though, for WoW at the moment in general. If you want to do dungeons, if you want to do raids, there's... Especially when you start doing some more difficult things, and when I say difficult, I mean challenging for your skill level. The second you get to stuff that is challenging for your skill level, it very quickly becomes very overwhelming. If you have no tracking add-ons whatsoever, there's a lot of things that's going to surprise you and be not necessarily obvious enough for you to infer what the right move or action would be in that scenario. Not true. It'll either be kill 200 boars or pay 199, so you get the option. That idea, what? Thanks for a problem in PvP general. Classic was simple, retail not so much. That's been a gripe for some peeps. See, I think in Classic, I don't like using Classic actually as the example here. I prefer to use Wrath of the Lich King as the golden age. Because Classic classes were incredibly simple and bosses were simple as well. So Classic was sort of like, and it wasn't that Classic classes were simple, it's more so that because of the debuff limits on bosses and because of just the inherent limits of the game, most like Warlocks, for example, the best way to play a Warlock in Classic was to just spam Shadow Bolt. Because bosses had debuff limits on them, so you couldn't really put your dots on the boss, otherwise you'd be removing someone else's dots that were maybe more important than yours, so fundamentally you just spammed Shadow Bolt. So this was terrible design. Wrath of the Lich King, I think, was the first time that we can all agree the classes and the bosses really became or was really perfected from where it was. And if you go to Wrath, the complexity of playing Wrath really comes from the classes, with the bosses simply testing your knowledge of your class. So most of the bosses weren't ridiculously difficult to do. It didn't have you didn't have crazy amounts of mechanics on the bosses. The bosses had mechanics and you had to follow these mechanics, but a lot of these mechanics and your ability to do them depended very much on your knowledge of your class and how your class plays, and being able to do your rotation while also dodging all of the shit that the boss wants to throw at you. I feel like now in modern retail, the script has somewhat flipped in World of Warcraft, where bosses are ridiculously complex, but classes have become almost simplistic. You know, most of the classes are just bog standard builder spender. You build and then you spend, and then you build and then you spend, and then you build and then you spend, and then most of the complexity really lies with the boss and the boss mechanics. And this, I think, is where the over-reliance on add-ons comes from, because the bosses have become so much more complex, because the classes are so much simpler to play. You run into that thing where the bosses have way too much going on, and you have to keep track of everything they're doing as well as everything that you're doing. So overwhelmingly, it just becomes a mess. The question is, how do you fix that? And I have no idea. I don't really. Because I don't know if you can go back to the classic version of class design. Because while it was really good for that era, it is also much slower than what we have today, and people enjoy the faster gameplay of modern classes. Can you go back? Can you take bosses back to the days of Wrath? I feel like no, because nowadays, with the amount of information that we have at our fingertips, the speed with which fucking guides come out, those bosses are not hard. I don't know when last you guys played Classic, but the raids in Classic is not hard, right? It's not difficult to play Classic. So yeah, fundamentally, I feel like it's sort of like, what do you do? And I don't know what that answer is. I've always felt that PvP and MMOs should have no gear at all, except maybe trinkets and talents. Shows the true skill. So Tree Breeze, they tried that. So there was a period where Blizzard really tried to do the no gear. Or it wasn't that there was no gear, it was that gear had almost no impact on your performance. And it nearly killed PvP. The problem there was that there's no progression. And what would happen is you could be a fully kitted arena player and you would have no strength over anyone else. So the question would then become, well, why am I doing what I'm doing? So psychologically, it just felt like players didn't care, you know? Players just completely rejected it. So yeah, I know where you're coming from, and I've said this before as well, but it doesn't seem like that's something players care about or that players want in World of Warcraft. Add-ons used to be optional. Yeah, those days are gone. I think hero talents are a step in the right direction. The system can be more of a horizontal progression by adding more options. I wonder if that is exactly what they're trying to do. The thing just with hero talents, and while hero talents are absolutely not borrowed power. Remember, borrowed power is specifically power that is going away at the end of a specific period of time. So the ultimate example of borrowed power would be gear. Gear is an absolute borrowed power. The reason most players don't complain about gear being a borrowed power is because the gear, once you replace the borrowed gear that you had, you're replacing it for more power, which is a linear scale. So it forms part of progression. But gear is a borrowed power because you're not going to have the gear from the first patch next patch, right? You're going to be replacing that. Big Tech, how you doing, bro? The problem with... so when you say hero talents are borrowed power, we know that hero talents are here to stay, which is also one of the reasons I have not complained about the current iteration of hero talents. Because hero talents are basically just talents. I know Blizzard is calling them hero talents because they needed something to market, but they are just talents. And that means that Blizzard will balance them the same way that Blizzard balance all of the other talents. If the game goes live with some hero talents completely fucked, Blizzard will fix that. It's fine, right? It's not something that is going away that we need to experience FOMO over. So I'm not too worried about Euro talents. I'm maybe a little underwhelmed by some of the Euro talents. I was hoping that some of the Euro talents would be a little bit more impactful. And I feel like this is just one of those problems where Blizzard needed another line in marketing, another new thing coming to the game in the next expansion. And so they chose Euro talents, when in reality, they should just have said the talent tree is expanding. I feel like if they didn't name this Euro talents and instead just said we're expanding the talent tree, people would not have, because the problem is in your head when you think Euro talents, you think, whoa, this is going to be huge. And then you see some of the Euro talents and like, this is it? You know, it's like you. Fuck, I'll use a sexual analogy. It's what I do best. It's like paying for a very expensive hooker, right? She's like $2,000. $2,000 hooker. And then you arrive. You've paid for the hotel because you had to pay for a hotel. She doesn't come to your house, right? You walk in, you're ready. You've got the condoms. You are ready for this. And then she just gives you a hand job. You're gonna feel disappointed. But if you had a hooker that charged you $100 and she came to your house and she gave you a hand job, you'd be like, at least it's a hand job, right? It's expectations, and it's managing those expectations. If you didn't call them Euro talents, most players would just be like, yeah, this is fine. But you said Euro talents. Right? So I'm expecting more than just a hand job. And I feel a little bit cheated that I'm just getting a hand job, right? And that's really the problem. But considering the fact that this is just an expansion of the talent tree, I think it's fine. The Euro talents basically have to be simple because classes are already feeling complex in a lot of cases. I don't know if I do, like, D-Right, do they though? Like, which classes are you referring to? When you say classes are already feeling very complex, which classes are you specifically referring to? This was better than the one from last time. It will always be a sexual one. Sometimes it's hit, sometimes it's miss, you know? I don't always nail the target first time. But, you know, if you keep doing sexual analogies, eventually some of them hit. Classes like Enhance. I haven't played Enhance at all this expansion, but Enhance used to be quite fun. Well, Grieve, how you doing? Outside of the WoW sphere, DF had the least hype on release. Part of it was SL sucking. Part of it was that it wasn't backed with a major feeling thing. Euro talents for that thing, for marketing. So, like, yeah, but it also makes it that it feels underwhelming. But I have no problem in principle or theory with more talents being passive. Specifically talents that don't add new abilities, but change the way existing abilities operate. It still gives me different ways to play. And that's really what you want from talents. Now, someone said they should add new specs. I am the complete opposite of you. In fact, I think Blizzard should be removing specs. I think we have too many specs in the game. I think we have too many classes in the game. Now, I don't want to remove any of the classes because I like all of the classes. And I don't actually want to remove any of the specs because I like most of the specs. Except for healing. That can go away. Who gives a shit about healing? But for all of the other specs, I really like them. The problem is, it's a systemic problem, right? This is why it's an issue. You have in World of Warcraft dozens upon dozens of different classes that each need to feel new, feel fresh, be balanced, and be able to do all of the content in the game. Dozens of them. I think we checked this once. It's like the game currently, how many classes do we have in World of Warcraft? Is it 12 or 13? Or is it 16? No, it's not 16. No fucking shot. How many classes are there in World of Warcraft? I don't know why I'm forgetting this. I did know this, but I can't remember now. It's 13. All right. So you have 13 classes, you have 38 specs in World of Warcraft, right? You don't actually have 13 classes. You have 38 classes. Because every spec in World of Warcraft plays like its own class. Right? Every single one of the specs in World of Warcraft have their own abilities, completely unique from almost all of the others. Yes, I'm aware some specs have crossover, but for the most part, they have their own abilities that operate completely separately from everything. 38 classes in World of Warcraft. The issue you have there is every single expansion, you have to invent new things for 38 classes. So what ends up happening there is the new things that you add almost always have to be watered down because you just don't have the time. There just literally isn't enough time to make unique and cool things for every single one of those classes. So yeah, from my perspective, I almost feel like for the future, I would like to see maybe a third talent tree be introduced to World of Warcraft that is shared across all of the classes, across all of the specs of a class. And that new talent tree brings in some of the abilities and stuff from the other classes. So you're sort of going back to the more hybrid days of World of Warcraft, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys remember. How many of you played back then? Holy shit, B-Deck. Thank you so much for joining the membership club, man. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Far too kind. That sounds like Path of the Titans. Could be Path of the Titans. It could be but if you remember, so really up until Mists of Pandaria. So everything before Mists of Pandaria, in World of Warcraft, you were not a fire mage or an ice mage or an arcane mage. You were a mage. And as a mage, you had certain things that you sort of spec'd into that made certain abilities really, really strong, but you still had access to everything else. And then, of course, in Mists of Pandaria, it became a lot more hyper-specialized. You specialized as an ice mage, and you instantly lost access to almost everything else as a result of this new specification or specialization. What if Blizzard brought a talent tree back that suddenly gave you access to some of the other things that your class has? So imagine, for example, you're a fire mage, but you gain access to frost abilities, and you can make yourself a frost fire mage by getting some of your frost abilities to form part of your spec. Or you're an affliction warlock, but you gain access to some of your demonology talents and or spells, and that turns you into kind of like a hybrid. Yeah, so it's kind of like the old talent trees, but you still have the unique specs, but for progression's sake, so for every new expansion that comes out, new talents have to be added. The new talents that's added are talents that merge the specs back together. So on the face of it, we have 3 unique and interesting specializations or classes for every class. And then this new talent tree sort of brings them back around and merges them back into each other. Because now you can actually make a lot more fun and interesting talents because you're not inventing brand new talents. You're just adding talents from the other specs into the talent tree for the different specs, if that makes sense. So it creates a lot more fun that players can actually play in. I would like that more than Hero Talents, to be honest. Well, I understand what they're trying to do with Hero Talents, but I don't know if Hero Talents would necessarily be sustainable. I feel like Hero Talents could be, although maybe this is exactly why Blizzard, no, even then, Hero Talents doesn't feel sustainable because you have 3 different types of Hero Talents, so that's still going to be a nightmare to try and develop that every single expansion. See, I'm just trying to think about ways to keep making new things every single expansion without running into the problem where you end up adding talents like 10% extra haste for one class. So you run out of time, so the Affliction Warlock's new talent, this expansion, is 10% increased haste. That's it. Because you didn't have time to do anything else, you know. Or the Affliction Warlock gets, even worse than that would be the Affliction Warlock gets 10% increased movement speed. Because you ran out of time. You just didn't have time for everything. So I'm trying to avoid a scenario like that. Of the War Within, they will probably get rid of Hero talents and keep the love talents like they did with Covenant abilities. Pedic, the thing with that is that would turn it into a borrowed power system already, and Blizzard have said that no borrowed power, right? So they're off the borrowed power train. I don't see that ever coming back. Hopefully it never comes back. The current class tree to include more of the inactive specs, and then we still have Hero talents, providing more fantasy and horizontal progression. There's another way of doing that. That's another way of doing it, right? Where you sort of revamp everything. But now we have to get into the how many times do we want Blizzard to revamp the classes? Considering the classes were revamped kind of in Dragonflight already. Miyaki, how you doing? Actually, making my Warlock in Season of Discovery is really fun. I think there's a lot of lessons that Blizzard can learn from Season of Discovery. I also think that there's a lot of lessons that Blizzard can learn from remakes. Like, unironically, I want gear with slots, and the gems give me extra abilities. I want that in retail. I think that would be super cool. That would be crazy fucking fun. Let's go. They give me that. I want that progression system that Remix has, but more fleshed out so that you get a lot more and you progress a lot more. Because it feels, especially with Remix, that you progress so fast that you stop getting new things very quickly, and then it kind of starts to feel a little boring getting new gear because you already have all of the gems, and all of the gems that you have are completely useless because you're only using specific gems. So it would be nice if they bring back Remix, specifically if they bring back Remix, I would like to see a much greater variety of gems and abilities that you can add to gear. At least we have back the skill tree. I hate when they change it. In Mass of Pandaria, oh, you're not alone. You're not alone on that. The only solution for so many classes is a sphere grid talent system. Scalable, allows player creativity, and still allows different specializations. I can see that happening. Love the fireballs coming out of my hunter randomly at mobs. Oh, you're not alone. Like, there's something about hitting a thing with a spell and then suddenly it's just fucking carnage. With my mage, I hit them with one frostbolt, and then suddenly there's explosions and fucking firebolts falling out of the sky, and it's just like, holy shit, that was one frostbolt, and I let loose hell on this NPC, which is just, it makes you feel like a god. You're just standing there going, yeah, eat my dick, bitch. Or when it doesn't proc, and you're like, please, I don't have health, just proc quickly. Kill this thing right now, and then it kills you. Like, motherfucker, why did this not proc? So, you know, it gives and takes. It's sort of, you don't know what you're going to get when you're going to get it, but it still is fun. Vogue, how you doing? I would love to see remakes for other past X-Packs as a living experience. Oh, yeah. Vogue, 100% agree with you. We spoke about this, you know, I think it was two Barrens chats ago, but we did speak about this. I think remakes should but I don't want remakes to come back as a timed event. I want remakes to be a thing, like a proper thing. And what Blizzard should do is they should have Cataclysm remakes, Wall of Dreno remakes, Mists of Pandaria remakes, Legion remakes, not Shadowlands, not Dragonflight remakes, not maybe even Battle for Azeroth remakes could be cool. But then have, like, say 5 or 6 different remixes, and instead of the remix going away or being timed. They're on a cycle. So every 90 days, there's a new remix that starts. So this 90 days is Mists of Pandaria. Next 90 days is Cataclysm. So on and so forth. And your characters can switch randomly from remix to remix. So I can take my main Warlock that is max level at the minute into remix, and it automatically starts at level 0 when it's the first time I'm doing that specific remix. So I can level it in the remix. If I have raid night, I leave the remix, do my raid, go back into remix, and keep leveling. So it remembers it separately from the rest of the game. Now, at the end of the 90 days for Mists of Pandaria remix, I leave the remix and I go into the Cataclysm remix, because that's the next one. I start at level 0. When Mists of Pandaria remix comes back around, I have an option when I want to join that. Do I want to start at 0, or do I simply wish to continue? And so on and so forth. So basically, there's always a remix. First and foremost, let's be honest. Is there anyone in chat that feels like remix wasn't far superior as a leveling experience compared to any of the other leveling experiences that you've had in World of Warcraft? Would you rather level new characters with remix or in the old world like a fucking peasant? Is what I'm asking. The old world is miserable. But the old world remixed, fucking phenomenal. Yeah? So remix the old world and give it back to us. The only thing I hate about remix is going from my remix character to my retail character. That, like, everything suddenly feels so fucking slow. It takes a while to get used to it after you've played remix and you get back to retail. Like, what is this? Why do I feel so very weak at the minute? But I still feel like it's really good, and we should have more remix. We should have more plunder storms. I think plunder booty was a really, really cool idea. I want to see more plunder booties in the future. I want to see plunder booty also developed, fix some of the core gameplay issues that it did have, add even more things to it, and let's get that back into the game, and especially stop doing the FOMO bullshit. Bring it back and keep it back. I'm excited to see what this experimentational team does next. I want to see what the next thing is, because they gave us plunder booty. Plunder booty was pretty cool. Then they gave us remix, which was phenomenal. What's next? Because you know there's something next. They said in an interview they have a lot of things cooking. Like the experimentational team is cooking like fucking crazy. So what do they have cooking next is really the question. Vanilla leveling experience meant more to me. Felt like I had skin in the game. It was difficult, many hours on Thoughtbot, months of grinding to get to 60. Remix is more exciting, throwaway tunes. So, Big Tech, the thing with... I agree with you, except those days are over. Like, fundamentally, if you were to ask me now, the days of me being 16 was a hell of a lot more fun than now. You know, when I was 16, I could jerk off in the morning, an hour later, I was ready to go again. Now I jerk off and it's about a fucking day or two before I'm ready again. That's just how it goes. Now, I could think back to the days that I was 16 and go, man, I wish I was 16 again. But I'm not 16, right? And if I was 16, I would miss all of the cool things I have fucking now. Fundamentally, we will never be able to go back to the days of old. Back then, Classic made sense because people didn't know any better. That's not the truth now. That quite simply is not the truth now. People want different things. So if you made... I agree with you that I think leveling in World of Warcraft should be a little bit more difficult. I think leveling is too easy as it stands, but I don't think taking it back to classic will be successful. I think you'll lose a lot of players as a result of that. A lot of people will quit if you did that. And your cooldown, Akalon. Yep. But I make my own money and I can do whatever the fuck I want. I couldn't do that when I was 16. I could jerk off as many times as I wanted a day, but I still had to do it, in my mom's house. And, well, if I wanted to go outside, well, not outside, I could go outside without asking, but if I wanted to go out, like go drinking, I had to lie and sort of, do all sorts of things in order to get out of the house. Now I can just leave. Like, oh, I want to go get drunk. I never want to go get drunk, but maybe I wanted to go get drunk. If I wanted to go get drunk, I could literally go, all right, guys, see you, peace, get in my car and fuck off and go get absolutely sloshed. No one could say shit, right? So sure, you lose a little, but you gain a lot, Hope mom's not listening. She might be, but definitely not watching the stream. Let's not be weird about this, but no. She knows, dude. Like, my mom knew when I was lying every single time. I remember when I first started smoking, I was like 16. Obviously, smoking in secret, you don't want your parents to know because they'll freak the fuck out. So I start smoking, and I'm trying to be as sneaky as fuck. I remember the first night I snuck out to go smoking. I walk into the house. I've sprayed myself. My friends told me you have to eat peanut butter. Like all these tricks of the trade, to hide the smell of smoke. I walk into the house. My mom goes, "Did you just smoke?" I'm like, "No." She said, "Don't lie to me. Did you just smoke?" I was like, "Yeah." And she freaked the fuck out. The thing that I was trying to avoid happened first fucking time I tried to smoke. So there was no lying. There was just basically me getting caught every single time. So yeah, she knows. Phase in Discovery, phase 1, and somewhat phase 2 was great. I liked Remix, but the power curve needs to be worked on a bit more. True. The smell would be all over your clothes. Jock, here's the funny thing. Thinking back to that now, I can't believe I was stupid enough to think that she wouldn't smell me. Because I've stopped smoking probably 2 years now, 2.5 years now. I can't remember exactly. Dude, the smell smokers give off fills up a fucking room so quickly. Like, if a smoker walks into a room, the whole room smells. Like, there's no hiding smoking. Like, you can't hide that smell. It fucking stinks. So, yeah, I was a stupid teenager that thought that, well, it's the worst that can happen. A bit of peanut butter is going to fix it. All that did was I ate a bit of peanut butter. I still smelled like smoke. But, of course, you don't know that when you're young because you're stupid. So, what are you going to do? I'm looking forward to what they're making next. This experimental team that made Plunderstorm and Remix seems like the most fun Blizzard has had in years. True. Yeah, parents know, but as you get older, they let you have your little victories of the seat. Not like 10 or 11, but 16, 17. Yeah. They sort of allow you to lie up until a point before they rein you the fuck in. And I'm glad my parents did rein me in. Because, dude, if my parents allowed me to do whatever the fuck I wanted to do, I would either be dead or in jail. Coincidentally, it's not too late for me to go to jail. My lecturer, I had a lecturer in college who looked me dead in the eye, right? I was sitting there just minding my own business. I don't think I was minding my own business. I can't remember what I was doing, but I'm pretty sure I was doing something that I wasn't supposed to do. But I was sitting there and the lecturer goes, "Stefan." And I think he said it a couple of times because by the time I heard him say Stefan, he was saying it quite angrily, right? But he goes, "Stefan." I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "You know what? You are either going to be very rich or you're going to be in jail one day." And he just moves on. And I've always wondered about that. Like, what did he see that makes him think I'm going to go to jail one day? Like, what am I going to do according to him that's going to make me go to jail? So I'm glad my parents sort of reined me in at times. My buddy had a mom that couldn't smell, so it's great for weed sex at his place. Dude, if my mom caught me smoking weed, holy fuck. So, most South Africans still think weed is like the worst thing you could smoke. If my mom knew that I smoked weed, she would unironically and quite literally send me to rehab. Like, I would be in rehab literally that same day if she caught me smoking weed. And you just pointed at him and laughed. Neither. No, I liked him. Every morning I would have a cigarette with him and we would drink coffee. So he was cool. He was fucking cool. And he had the greatest stories, dude. Like, this guy taught theater studies, and he spent the first 20 years of his adult life. Like, at the age of 18, he went to university. He studied. As soon as he finished his studies, he studied to become a air host, whatever the fuck the male version is of an air hostess. Isn't an air host? I don't know. The people that walk around in planes and give you shit, right? So he studied to become that. Then he did that for 20 years of his life, and the only reason he did that was it gave him the opportunity to see the world and visit all of the amazing museums and fucking amphitheaters and just basically travel the world to see the actual history of theater, right? Which was, how cool is that? So he had these insane stories about theater and the ancient Greek theaters and the ancient Roman theaters, and he was at the Shakespearean halls and the museums. It was insane. His accent wasn't a clue. Wait, whose accent where? Who's talking about accents? What's going on? A day years old when I found out you don't live in the States. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, no, nowhere near the States. I have a bone to pick with the States just by. I know this has nothing to do with World of Warcraft, but I do feel very strongly about this. You guys need to sort your lives out. I'm a little annoyed at the fact that Americans drink Dr. Pepper. And I've come to the conclusion that it's because soda in America sucks dick. So you guys think something that tastes like medicine actually tastes good. Either that, or you guys are so fucking full, so medicated, that you think medication tastes good. Because I'm sorry, but Dr. Pepper it's terrible. It is not a good drink. Like, not at all. And yet Americans defend that shit. Dude, I'm in a fight for my life over on Twitter for this exact take. The Americans are not happy with me. By the way, you aren't also streaming Barrens Chat. No, joke, no. The sugar numbed their tongues. Dr. Pepper is a staple. Dr. Pepper tastes like perfume. I'm smart, but not that bright sometimes. Not even from the States, and I enjoy Dr. Pepper. I genuinely... Maybe it is a cultural thing, because Dr. Pepper is not a big deal here. Like, if I wanted to get Dr. Pepper, I have to go to, like, the import aisle, where they have international shit, and then I pay very expensive for one can of Dr. Pepper, because Dr. Pepper is not a thing here. Like, not at all. We have Coke, we have Pepsi, we have Sparletta, we have all of that shit, but we don't have Dr. Pepper. So, maybe it is just a cultural thing. Maybe... yeah, we just don't have that, so I'm not used to it, but I've had it once, and I absolutely despised the taste of it. But I did promise that if I do stream tomorrow, I will buy another can of Dr. Pepper, and I'll try it live on stream, so we'll see. Maybe I changed my mind. You never know. Barrens Chat has gone to the soda fountain tavern. Want a drink? Soda is what you get. I drink a local soda named Ale 81 ginger-based. As a Texan, I'm required to love Dr. Pepper. Well, you could just not drink Dr. Pepper. Just drink Pepsi Max, bro. Dr. Pepper is good in the UK too. Have it with some ice. See, here we already start with the bullshit. I can have Pepsi Max without ice, without anything. Room temperature is best, by the way. This is something I will die on. Soda at room temp, far better than cold soda. Dr. Pepper is just Coke mixed with root beer. I've never had root beer, but If it tastes anything like fucking Dr. Pepper, I don't want it. Whoa. You said you will be streaming just so you can drink it on stream. The Grey. But I may have an engagement tomorrow. That's the problem. A friend of mine wants to have a barbecue. I'm just waiting to hear if it's actually happening tomorrow afternoon or starting tomorrow afternoon or if it's starting tomorrow night. If it starts tomorrow night, that's a problem, but not a big problem. But it is a problem because I want to watch Ali C tomorrow. But if it starts tomorrow afternoon, I can't stream. So it's going to depend on what happens with the barbecue. Unbelievable. Bro, I stream every single day of the week. I spend my days with you guys, right? And I'm not allowed to spend one Saturday having a barbecue. Like, dude, you guys are taking this whole mining thing way too fucking seriously. I'm just going to say that. Root beer is stronger than Dr. Pepper, in my opinion. The original Coke is the real deal. You see, the thing is, in America, you guys don't use sugarcane. You use the other bullshit. What's that fucking corn syrup things? I don't think you know what good soda tastes like. Because in South Africa, we use sugarcane. In fact, again, the only way to get corn syrup in South Africa is to go to the international aisle. And then you get these little bottles of corn syrup. Otherwise, you just get normal sugar. And that's how you do it. You can get sodas with real sugar cane in the US. Yeah, the imported ones from Mexico that people have told me about. High fructose corn syrup. Yeah, that's the one that you guys use. We don't really use that at all. At all. The US isn't smart enough to ban high fructose corn syrup like Canada did. I don't know if you should be... I don't know if you should ban it. I don't like when governments ban shit. But I do think that... So the reason... We were talking about World of Warcraft, but let's fucking go. The reason high fructose corn syrup is such a big problem in America is because of all the government subsidies that farmers get to grow corn. The farmers got the subsidies because of famine and famine fears back in the day, and they wanted to incentivize more farmers to grow corn so that there would be enough food. Then they ended up with way too much corn and nowhere to fucking put it. And so the farmers figure out, hey, if you put this through a massive chemical process, you actually get a thing that could replace sugar. And now you have this, the subsidies remain because of lobbying, and you just have way too much corn and not enough to do with it. So there you go. You guys have high fructose corn syrup. The rest of the world doesn't have that problem because as far as I'm aware, in South Africa, farmers get jack shit. If you're a farmer, you're shit out of luck. The government couldn't give two fucks. You grow whatever you can sell, basically. If the government stopped subsidizing corn in America, high fructose corn syrup would probably disappear because I'm pretty sure sugar cane in general is cheaper than high fructose corn syrup. Pretty sure. It's still not good for you, but I do think it's better than high fructose corn syrup. Well, the Grey, you don't even need to incentivize it because if the country needs food, then food prices are automatically going to go up. That means that farmers are automatically going to plant food where the prices have gone up because they want to make more money. So the only time I would say subsidies could work and should be implemented is if, like, for example, there is a famine and you desperately need people to just go all fucking in, right? Then sure, do a couple of subsidies. That could work. The corn they use for syrup is usually gene-modified corn that animals don't like as feed, so they feed it to us. Yeah, let's not even get into... Dude, I have... So... I'll tell you guys this. There's a study that was done on 40 people. 40 low-income... it was specifically done on poor people. So 40 poor people. The reason they did the 40 poor people is they wanted to see what happens to the human body when people eat the food in American markets, right? So in an American supermarket, when you walk in, the food that you get there, you know, the ones in the packages that is jam fucking packed with calories and is actually just empty. And it turns out that poorer people eat shittier food because the shittier food is far cheaper than real food, right? So they went to like really poor households and they got the people there to partake in this study. They took 20 of them, so half the group, and they put them on this standard, what you would call American diet, right? What most poorer Americans, or like let's say lower middle class and down, right, people would eat. So basically all of the quick meals and shit of that nature. They gave them that food to eat. The other group, they gave completely not expensive food, but food that had no ultra-processed ingredients. Still supermarket bought, but they mentioned something, maybe you guys know what this means. They mentioned that it was bought from Safeway. So standard Safeway food. I don't know what the fuck Safeway is, but I'm imagining it's some kind of Whole Foods or maybe healthier type of thing, place where you can buy food that isn't filled with supermarket. I don't know. I don't know what the actual thing is. Holy shit, Ryan. $50? Are you nuts, bro? I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. I echo, how do you think? I will answer your question in a second, Ryan, but thank you so much. I promise I will get to it. Safeway is a shopping market, major grocery chain. Safeway is a grocery chain like Walmart or HEB. All right, so whatever it is, they went to Safeway, and maybe there's some kind of food line, right, at Safeway that doesn't have any preservatives in it and doesn't have any ultra-processed food in it, or whatever the case might be. But okay, so they went to Safeway, and they bought still, so it's, in other words, it's still easy meals. It just doesn't have any ultra-processed foods in it, or ingredients in it. So the two groups, right? One group on literally everything ultra-processed, super, super cheap. The other group on also basically cheap food, but no ultra-processed ingredients. They had the two groups on this diet, 5,000 calories a day. Now, if you didn't know, 5,000 calories a day is a lot of fucking calories. Like that, you have to really eat to get to 5,000 calories a day. So 5,000 calories a day. And they basically, yeah, kind of organic, but not even really organic. Okay, so 2 weeks. And then they swapped. So the group that was on the more organic went to the non-organic and so on and so forth. What ended up happening, during the 2 weeks, the group that was on the ultra-processed food gained 2 kilograms. The group that was on the normal food lost 2 kilograms. Both ways. So still eating 5,000 calories. Terrible food. So we're not talking going to fruit and veg and getting, raw, fresh veggies and cooking that with a nice steak. We're talking fucking packaged meals, just no ultra-processed shit in it. And they ended up losing weight over the group with ultra-processed food. So yes, the food that, not just America, the rest of the world as well, but the food that Americans buy in the shopping markets is fucking ridiculous. That ultra-processed shit is so fucking bad for us. It's insane. Anyways, Ryan, now, on to you, sir. Thank you so much for the $50. You absolute bastard. I appreciate that, man. Hey, Echo, how do you think Azeroth feels about the Titans? Do you think she will react with hostility towards them for what happened to Argus? This includes Sargeras, seeming he supposedly tortured him. I can see Azeroth avenging her brother. So the thing with that, Ryan, it all boils down to... And by the way, can I get some hearts in chat for Ryan? Guys, a member of the chat forks out $50. I want to see some hearts. Come on, let's see them going. But okay, so Ryan... The question that you're asking all depends on the relationship that Azeroth has to the other Titans and also to Argus. Now, as the Titans tell it, the relationship is Azeroth is one of them. But the way that Azeroth, or the way that it happens at the moment, at least as far as I can tell, in World of Warcraft, what the Titans did to Azeroth does not, to me, scream same. I don't understand why all of these forges and all of these engines exist on Azeroth, specifically because we know that the Titans have Algolon. They have access to things that can induce re-origination. So if the Titans have the ability to re-originate, thereby killing all of the old gods and all life on Azeroth, then why would you need to build all of these forges? Why would you need to build this enslavement system of Azeroth? Then, of course, we also look at Magni. Magni claims to have heard Azeroth's voice, and yet, well, shit went wrong. Shit went weird. Now we're hearing Azeroth's voice again, but the beings of Koresh also heard the exact same voice, or at least also a Holy Radiant song that they heard before the Void attacked. So clearly, there's something... There's something amiss. Something is weird. Something doesn't make sense. From my perspective, and you obviously know my perspective on this, I don't believe that the Titans and Azeroth are the same thing. It's also quite interesting, and this is actually a topic that I wanted to discuss tonight, because we discussed it a little bit yesterday during the stream, but, you know, I haven't discussed it with you guys yet. If you go back and you listen to Xal'atath's, the beta trailer, Xal'atath never calls us enemies. She never even makes herself our enemy. Like, go back and listen. Xal'atath says, right, very specifically, that once we lose the delusions of the empty faiths like the light, and we realize that none of the cosmological forces are coming to save us, all that will be left is our fury. And that's when Xal'atath says, and your delicious fury will be mine. She doesn't say that she's going to enslave us. She doesn't say that she's going to mind control us. She doesn't say that she's going to force us. She says that once we realize what the cosmological forces actually want, our anger, we're going to give our anger to her freely, to use. Okay, so from my perspective, it doesn't look like the Void wants to destroy Azeroth or destroy us. That means, to answer your question in a very roundabout way, so I do apologize for going on and on and on about this, but to answer your question, if Azeroth awakens, I have a feeling that the Titans are going to be enemy number one. The Titans have done stuff on Azeroth that Azeroth is going to want to extract a pound of flesh for. And that may actually be where the Lost Titan comes in. Azeroth may actually utilize the new armies of Azeroth to go after the Titans, to go hunt down the Titans and bring their heads, so to speak. So yeah, I can absolutely see that as being one of the ways in which Azeroth can react. But that, of course, means I'm right that Azeroth and the Titans aren't the same. If Azeroth and the Titans are the same, then obviously she's going to help the Titans. But I don't think that's what's happening here. Give a thumbs up for the stream chat. Show Akko a little love. Treebreeze, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. You know, I have feelings too, and so often chat just takes advantage of me. I appreciate that. I think people should hit the like button. It makes your pee-pee go large. I sell my soul to the Void for one corn chip. Not gonna lie. Wait, what the fuck? What? A corn chip? One. So not more, just one. Why just one? If you're gonna sell your soul, don't you think you could at least get a bag? Like, at least... here he goes. Say he has feelings again. Dude, I do have feelings. The fact that you guys say I don't have feelings is really hurting my feelings. I feel it in my feels. Even if she is a Titan, don't think so. But maybe she disagrees with what the Pantheon has done. That could also be possible. So it could be. So Amanthul is a little bitch. Let's not mince words here. Amanthul is a little bitch. So I would not put it. Just go and look at what Amanthul did to the wall tree that A&R planted. He ripped it out for no fucking reason. I would not put it past Amanthul that even if Azeroth is a Titan, he saw some kind of use case for Azeroth and he was like, nah, fuck it, she's not getting born. Let's just lock her up. Ryan, you're most welcome. Thank you so much for the $50. I really appreciate that. If I'm a control freak, Stephen, that's literally the sense that I get about Amanthul. He's a control freak. I would not be surprised if he's actually the enemy of all. Matthew Leclerc, that is of course possible. So it is possible that Xalatath is the original old god and that somehow she got torn into these little pieces and that's what she, but I don't think, because that convolutes the story of the old gods quite a bit. Otolang, there is, I made a video on this was a long time ago, but there is definitely a very big similarity between Algalon and the body that Algalon has and the bodies of the Titans. Like, if you look at the Titans as they arrive on the Pantheon, and you look at them as they become bodies, they look like Algalon, right? They look like the Constellars. They're called the Constellars, right? Yeah, I think they're called the Constellars. They look like the Constellars. Literally exactly like the Constellars. And from the lore, the Constellars and the Titans are not the same thing. The Constellars were not born inside planets. So there's definitely a possibility of that. Absolutely. And may work with others? Of course. No, they definitely don't get along. Definitely not. But alright, guys. 5 minutes. Ask your questions. I have to go buy food. And if I don't go in the next 5 minutes, everything's closed. And then I won't get anything to eat. And then I'm going to have to eat what? Dick? I don't want to do that. So, 5 minutes. Any questions? Anything you want to know? Let's do quick fire round. Ask your questions. No Twitch after that. I need to go buy food. Like, what the fuck, bro? I can't stream while I'm buying food. Speaking of Algalon, I wonder what happened to him. He told Bran his fate was set. Oh, that is true. Or what will happen to him. Understandable. Thoughts on Pyro's class factions tweet? The Grey. Remind me when next we stream on Twitch that I react to that instantly. Okay? Remind me so that I react to that first thing. So the next Twitch stream, I will be reacting to Pyromonster's class faction tweet. Repeating my question, do you think Nyalotha could be similar to Emerald Dream for life and Shadowlands for death, but the one for the void? Yeah, pretty much, right? I think Nyalotha is is the word, not facsimile, but it's sort of like it's a representation of what their city in the void looks like. So what the worlds of the void looks like, which probably gives us a little bit of insight into what is in the void. So the void isn't actually void. It's not actually empty. There's actual, like, maybe cities and shit inside the void. So it is possible, right? Your video on Void the other day, Locust Walker in Talagris Rift, I think he was talking to the Elf trainees about how the Void will not be their enemy soon rather than us in general. That is possible, John. That is possible. I just know I don't trust Locust Walker. I have this deep mistrust for that motherfucker. Like, deep. I can't tell you. Every single time I see quests involving him, every single time I see him, there's just this... He's leading Illyria literally into the arms of the void. No one has ever been able to resist the whispers of the void, and somehow he claims that he can? Mega doubt. Oh yeah, Grofal, we will also be reacting to Preach's interview with Yoshi P. True. Remind me of that as well, because I do actually want to see that interview. Do you think Xal'atath is all she seems to be? I mean, more like a distraction, acting for another rather than personal old goddess? No, I think there's a lot more to Xal'atath. I actually also reserve the opinion that Xal'atath may in fact not serve the old gods, but instead use the old gods in the void. I don't know why, but I sort of have this feeling that maybe Locust Walker isn't working with the void. Maybe Locust Walker is working with Xal'atath. You know? Like maybe Xal'atath is actually our ally, but not in the way that we think. It's possible. Where and what is Zal's true form? Could she be the being in the void and light-shifting crystal possibility imprisoned? I would not... I would not say that's impossible. We know that she must have been something before she was placed in the blade, right? Because she mentions how something was done to her in Orgrimmar, even though that must have been done very, very long ago, long before we have records for. Because Orgrimmar didn't exist that long ago. And we know that she was a blade long before Orgrimmar even existed, long before the orcs even arrived on Azeroth. So clearly there was something that she was before the blade, but what her true form is, I literally do not know. So much to do next Twitch stream, and all you guys gonna talk about is dicks? Well, we will talk about dicks as well. You know that's gonna happen. He does always talk about balance, though, and that part makes me think he might be a friend instead of a foe. Yeah, but friend of what? And to what end? Right? Because it is entirely possible for him to serve the void and still be a friend if the void happens to be a friend. So, you know, it could happen. Where and what is... Okay, I answered that. Do you think Zal can be an aspect of a loon? I thought about that, but then she called Elune an upstart goddess, which is weird, right? If she was a servant of Elune or part of Elune, why would she call Elune an upstart goddess? And she said it in a very condescending sort of way. Jock, I literally don't know. John, thank you so much for the £10. Really appreciate you. You're far too kind, sir. Far too kind. Can I get some hearts in chat, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will. Thank you so much for that. I don't know. But it is possible that it was found inside the Twisting Nether. There are things in the Twisting Nether that we genuinely don't fucking know about. We know that there is knowledge inside the Twisting Nether because more than half of the books in Karazhan would not have been found was it not for the Twisting Nether. The Twisting Nether houses things. We don't know what and how or why, but there are things inside the Twisting Nether that can provide insane amounts of power. So it must have been something that he found inside the Twisting Nether. Because we also know that Sargeras is completely immune to damage from both mortal and immortal weapons. How? He is, as far as we know, the only being like that. So it's not a Titan thing. It's not knowledge that the Titans have. that knowledge must have come from the Twisting Nether. So, where did it come from? Or the death magic was just innate to Argus. By Luminex, who is really big D&D nerd. Matthew Leclerc, I have not, but I mean, I've done rewrites on it, although not in like theory. So I would like to check that out. I'm gonna check it out. Anything would be better than the actual Shadowlands. Like anything would be better. Even if the lore of the Shadowlands was we arrived in the Shadowlands, Zuval stubbed his toe. In feeling the pain of stubbing his toe, he realized that he was just overreacting and he should actually chill out. That would be better than what Shadowlands was. Brickle J, I know I have to go. Okay, wait. You're right. I do actually have to go. It's 5 minutes to... I'm not going to find... Fuck me, man. I'm going to have to go to the shop that's a little bit further, that's open a little bit later. Yeah, okay, I have to go now, guys, because I'm genuinely not going to find anything open to get food. I do apologize, but I genuinely have to go now. But hey, it's been 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I will be back next week. I promised that we will do this weekly now. I wanted to do it every 2 weeks, but you guys said, no, every week. So we'll do it every week, okay? Remember, if you don't want to be kicked in the nuts, you should sign up to Patreon. It's literally $1 a month, and it helps. It really does. And also, I'm thinking about maybe doing some giveaways for people that are subbed at $5, but I'll figure that out. Let me know what you think of that, please. Like, just in the comment section or in DM. You can DM me as well. Some giveaways. Some fucking Xboxes or dollars. Maybe I give $50 or $100 away to 2 people or some shit. But we'll figure that out, right? Just to give back a little, because I fuck making content for Patreon. I'm not doing that. I like making content, but not for Patreon. Anyways, I really appreciate all of you for coming out, for hanging out, for spending some time with me. It's been my absolute pleasure to be the one to entertain you. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace. Oh, and have a lovely weekend.